So today I'm going to be giving my updated election prediction for the 2024 US presidential election. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I think it's about time that we do one. I'm also going to do another one like right before the election. It'll be my final prediction for it, and then I might do like a reaction / breakdown after the election and kind of go through what happened. But today we're doing another one. This one is going to be a lot more based off of factual polling data-ish kind of things and current trends, as opposed to kind of what I feel like is going to happen. And that's because the election is less than a month away. If you're in the US, make sure you're registered to vote, and if you can vote, go vote on election day or mail in your ballot early or do early voting, whatever it is. Just make sure you vote because it's kind of important. I registered to vote like a month after I turned 18. I have plans to go home and vote in person at home because it's important to me, and it should be important to you. It's also important to be well informed about politics. Here's a hint: don't just look at what the news tells you. Make sure to do research on certain things because, you know, the media lies a lot. No matter what, either side, both sides lie. So always make sure to fact check everything, research, and know who you're voting for as well. If you do enjoy today's prediction, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I am on a severe time crunch. I figured that, you know, maybe I could try to eat lunch before recording today. That did not work. It is now 12:43 and I have to leave at 1. I have 17 minutes to record this prediction. I might be cooked. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump straight into it. So this map right here is kind of just like what the website 270 to win has set up, and it's pretty factual. These are your safe states for the 2024 election. I don't think anything changes here. There's been some talk about New Hampshire and Virginia possibly being a little bit more Republican in this cycle. I'm not 100% sure if I agree on that or not. Like, Kamala Harris still has a 6-point lead, almost 7-point lead in Virginia in polling, and she actually has the same point in margin of a lead in New Hampshire. So I don't think these two states flip, and I think I'm going to leave them as is. So this map, usually I like to color in all the states on my own, but I'm actually going to be leaving it as such right here because I agree with this. You know, I agree with the swings. You know, I think Colorado is a safe state for Democrats. I think California is a very safe state for Democrats, obviously. And, you know, on the contrary, you know, I think South Carolina is a Republican safe state. Same thing with Missouri or Indiana. And then you have your kind of like likely states like Texas, Iowa, Ohio. I agree with that. I don't think Texas is going to shift Dem in this election. I think it's going to go more right just because of the border crisis. I don't think they, you know, there's been a lot of talk in the past 8 to 12 years in politics about Texas shifting to the left. It is happening, but I think that the border crisis is reversing that. So really, it's not happening anymore. In fact, Texas is most likely going to be shifting a little bit more to the right in this election. Florida, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the hurricane response and FEMA and the mishandling of funds. That's kind of a factor in a lot of these southern states as well. We got to remember that Georgia also got tarnished and destroyed by Hurricane Helene. Same thing with North Carolina. And, you know, these are things that could have effects on the election on both sides, to be honest. On one hand, you have, you know, people realizing that the government hasn't been as efficient as it should be responding to the disaster. And on the other hand, you're going to have people who can't vote anymore because they don't have homes anymore. I don't want to say it cancels out because that's a horrible thing to say, but, you know, the hurricane and natural disasters like that are going to have effects on this election. I don't remember if it had that big of an effect on the election in 2020, although I feel like the federal response in 2020 was about the same as it was in 2024. So really, I mean, it is what you think it is. I personally, never mind. We're not going there. Other things that we have to factor in, once again, the immigration crisis. I think this is going to affect states like Texas and Arizona specifically because they're on the border. I feel like all the other states, though, aren't going to be too worried about that. And another thing it comes down to is economy, you know, inflation. Inflation rate is actually down right now. It's pretty normal. I don't want to say normal, it's slightly elevated, but it's not as bad as it once was. But things are still very expensive. And, you know, there's a lot of theories as to why things are so expensive. Corporate price gouging is certainly one of the reasons, but I don't know if it's the main driving cause. On the other side of things, you can look at the huge amount of spending that the country is doing. We're spending way too much money. We're sending money overseas. We're spending too much money. That's basically the kind of gist of things. So I think that's going to be one of the major factors in this election, and it's going to lose Kamala Harris a few states. This is going to be an extremely close election. It's not going to be, you know, like the 2020 election where Joe Biden won he won pretty well in 2020. This is probably going to be like the closest election we've had in a while. I actually Let me think. Maybe since Bush and Gore? I might be wrong though. But it's going to be, you know, one state is going to decide it. It's going to be extremely close. And the outcome of the election is going to be interesting because, you know, US politics right now are super polar. You know, there's the left and the right, and they hate each other. There's not much cooperation. There's not a lot of bipartisanship. And anytime that there was bipartisanship in the government in this cycle, it was shot down by usually Republicans, but also Democrats at times. So what I'm getting at here is that whichever side wins the election, the opposing side is going to freak out, and it's not going to be good. Our country is not very politically stable right now, and there's a lot of driving causes to that. But I'm just going to say that it wasn't always this way. It started up in 2016, so use context to figure out why it might be that way now. Bipartisanship it's not dead, but it's dying, which is not good. And this comes down to my fundamental argument that the United States needs to abolish the two-party system and become a multi-party state like much of Europe is, because Europe doesn't have big issues like this when it comes to, you know, a bi-party system. So let's get to the actual prediction of mine. So this map, I agree with this map 100%. Like I said, I think this stays the same. You know, Minnesota's, Tim Walz is from there. I think Minnesota is a likely Democrat state. Virginia, once again, likely Democrat state. I don't think that, you know, as a Virginian, I can kind of speak on behalf of the state a little bit. You know, of course, maybe not really, because not everyone's going to agree with what I'm about to say, but I don't think a lot of people are too happy with the current governor of Virginia. I know I'm not. So there's a likely shift. You know, people are going to realize that, hey, maybe we should go out and vote because this is kind of important. So I don't think that Virginia is going to the right like some people are saying that it could. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, New Hampshire, same thing. Maine, the districts in Nebraska, it's all the same. All these kind of likely Democratic areas, they're going to stay the same. They're not going to change. But let's get to the actual swing states, which are the states that are in this kind of tan color here. Of course, you have the Rust Belt, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. I think the most interesting and the most important region that we have to focus on is the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are the most important states in this election. And if you want to win this election, you have to win all three of these states, I think. There might be a scenario where you can lose Pennsylvania and win everything else. But either way, it's extremely close in all three of these states, and that's why they're so important. That's why both candidates have been in the Rust Belt so often, because they are so very important. Specifically Michigan, I've seen a lot of stuff out of Kamala Harris in Michigan, a lot of stuff out of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. I haven't really been keeping too up to date with the campaigns, but we're going to be factoring the polling here. So let's look at Wisconsin. You can barely see it, and I apologize for that, but Kamala Harris has a 1.5 lead in Wisconsin, which is a very kind of shallow lead. It's kind of gotten thinner recently, which is kind of, you know, that's a little interesting. It's funny to see that the RFK endorsement really did nothing, but there was a point where it was close and then it widened out and then it got close again. Wisconsin is going to be a flip of the coin on election night. Wisconsinites, make sure you go vote. I'm going to go ahead and give Wisconsin very slightly to Kamala Harris though. Wisconsin is a state that is, it's a state in the United States, and it votes very interestingly. That's really all I can say about it. So yeah, I'm going to have Wisconsin going to the left here, giving the Democrats 236 on election night. Of course, it's not exactly going to pan out like this. You know, polls close on the East Coast way before they close on the West Coast. So usually what happens on election night is we have a wave of states going from right to left. Usually California is called right away though, because they always go left. I saw some people saying California is in play for Republicans. That's kind of funny. Anyway, we're going to be looking at Michigan next. Michigan's also an important state, more electoral votes than Wisconsin has. Once again, a very close lead by Harris in Michigan, 1.5 points. You might be thinking, Aiden, why don't you just, you know, recrop the screen so we can see the polls better? I don't have time. I have to leave in 7 minutes. This is kind of a rush video, but I was able to record that, so that's a good start. But Michigan, 1.5 favorites. This is another state that, you know, might be a flip of a coin on election night, but I feel like it is a lot safer for Democrats than the polls are making it out to be. So once again, I'm giving it to Kamala Harris. I think it goes left on election night. So now we get to the crazy battleground states. I feel like Wisconsin and Michigan, those are a little bit more of safer for Dems than a lot of people are making them out to be. But as for the rest of these states, they are really just kind of a coin toss. And actually, I want to talk about North Carolina real quick, because that's not the case for them. North Carolina, it used to be kind of close and competitive, but it's definitely shifted to the right. I do believe they elected a Democratic governor, but that stuff doesn't really matter. Oh, wow, that's really close. So there is a Trump lead in North Carolina by 0.8. That's, once again, that's a coin flip on election night. But he's held a pretty sustainable lead throughout the whole thing. And, you know, maybe accounting for the Hurricane Helene stuff now, and how close that is to the election, I'm going to go ahead and give North Carolina to Trump. I don't think that Harris is, you know, too active were active enough in North Carolina and the South to win it. Georgia is a different story, but North Carolina, I'm giving it to the Republicans. But now we're down to the final 4 states. These are arguably the 4 most important states in this election. Maybe not Nevada because they only have 6 votes, but Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, these are key battleground states that you want to win if you want to win this election. Let's go ahead and take a look at Nevada first. Nevada is an interesting state, I gotta say. You can see it on the map. You can see it right here in the polls. It's been flipping back and forth, kind of. It's usually been a Harris state, but it's definitely shifted right in the past 4 years. I think it's actually, there was a little bit of a fiasco in 2020 with, how Nevada was counting votes and why they took so long. I think some people need to chill out on that kind of stuff, especially like the claims that elections are rigged, because they're not. If there is voter fraud, it's on a very small scale and it doesn't have any large effects on the US system. There's been no plausible or feasible evidence that the election was rigged in 2020 or rigged enough, which is, out loud that sounds bad, but when I say rigged enough, I'm not implying that there was intention of rigging it. I'm implying that there was voter fraud. But that voter fraud, if it was there, and it probably was on a very small scale in these little localities, it wasn't enough to change the election for an entire state. So chill out on that, because there's no evidence of tampering. Nevada, though, where does Nevada go in this election? It's very dependent on turnout. If more Nevadans vote, the more likely it is to go to the left, but if less Nevadans vote, the more likely it is to go to the right, and that's because Republicans tend to have a little bit more turnout than Democrats do. So this is very important for Nevadans. If you want to go to the left, you got to go out and vote. If you want to go to the right, don't vote. So where am I sitting on Nevada? I honestly don't know. I feel like it honestly might be a real coin flip on election night. If it goes to the left, I'm not surprised. If it goes to the right, I'm also not surprised. If it goes to the right, it's going to be a flip state, and that's not good for Democrats because that means you're losing electoral votes. So far, this map is exactly the same as it was in 2020, but I'll be giving Nevada to the Democrats on the slight edge, and that's just because they were a blue state in 2020. Had they been a red state in 2020, I would have made them Republican here, and that's just kind of indicative of how I think that it really is kind of a flip state. It could go either way. So just because it was blue in 2020, I'm making it blue again here. Now we go to Arizona. Chat, I have 2 minutes. Looking at the Arizona poll, I think this state is a little bit more decided than some people are thinking. Is the Trump plus 1.6 right now? It was close at one point back in mid-September, interestingly enough, and Harris did have a lead there in late August, or throughout most of August. I didn't know that, but then again, it's been a while since I did one of these election videos, but I think Arizona goes to the right pretty easily, and Arizona is, it's a Republican state that's been trending left. It trended very left in 2020. Joe Biden won that state. But here, I think it goes back to kind of, shifting back to the right a little bit. I think Trump's going to win this state. But now we go over to the 2 most important states in this election. If you don't win these 2 states, or if you don't win one of these 2 states, you're not winning the election. You cannot win this election without these 2. And, there might be a scenario where you actually can. But the main point is, and the most realistic point is, that you have to win one of these 2 states, either Pennsylvania or Georgia. Let's start with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, very close. 0.5 favorite, or no, 0.6 favorite for Harris. Is it going to be that close on election day? Yes, it is going to be extremely close. It might come down to a few 10,000 votes, maybe even thousands of votes. And if that happens, there's going to be a recount, and then, there's going to be the whole rigged thing again should Harris win it. But just note, have faith in your election system. It's going to be close. Harris did have a lead, but it's gotten very close lately. That could be due to a lot of things. Where does Pennsylvania go, in my opinion? I really don't know. It's hard to do predictions when things are super close like this. But looking at Pennsylvania, they have Josh Shapiro, their governor. He's been campaigning for Harris very well. Josh Shapiro is a very liked governor in Pennsylvania. He got elected back in 2020, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pennsylvanians. And then they have John Fetterman in this, was it Fetterman, right? In the Senate. Some weird things have been happening with him. I'm not sure what's going on, but he has been kind of weird and outcasted in the Democratic Party. But Pennsylvania shifted left in 2020. Of course, it was a state that Trump won in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. Does Harris win it here? Really? It comes down to a coin flip once again on election night. It could go either way. In either way, I would not be surprised. But in my own personal belief and opinion, I think Pennsylvania goes to the left and decides the election. And, Harris wins 276. Now, we haven't even gotten to Georgia yet, but Pennsylvania, once again, it is one of those states where it could go either way. I'm not saying that it's going to go to the Democrats. I'm saying that I think it's going to the Democrats because I don't know. It's too close. The polling shows that it's too close, and it's going to be a coin flip on election night. Now, if we know anything about polling, is that you can't always trust it. 2016, for example, had Hillary Clinton winning Florida. She did not win Florida. She didn't win any of the states that she thought she was going to win. She lost the Rust Belt, and she lost the election embarrassingly. That was bad. Polling has improved since then. It's gotten better. Is it reliable still? It could go either way. It's hard to do accurate polling. So yeah, I have Harris winning 276. Let's look at Georgia real quick in their polls. I think this is a state that, yeah, it's probably going to go to Trump. Biden won it in 2020. Surprisingly to me, I actually had Trump winning it in 2020. I think it goes back to the right here and Trump wins it. So this is my kind of election prediction as of today. This is, if the election were to happen today, this is what I think would happen, and it's loosely based on polling. Anyway, yeah, so 276 to 262, Kamala Harris wins the election. That's my opinion based on the polls and based off of what I'm kind of feeling right now. This election is going to be super close. It's going to be within, a couple 10, maybe 15 electoral votes as it is here. So my kind of takeaway from this is that if you can vote, go vote, because it's important. And in a democratic society, you should always exercise your right to vote, no matter who you're voting for, as long as you're not voting for the second coming of Hitler. Anyway, I gotta go to class. I'm 3 minutes overdue to leave, so I have to hustle over there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave your input in the comments. Let me know what you think is going to happen in this election. If you agree with my prediction, if you think I'm a rabid socialist or far-right conservative, let me know. It'll be fun to entertain those ideas, because I'm neither of those things. Or am I? I also discovered when I'm recording here, if I do this, the mic does a really big boom sound. That's happened in a lot of these videos recently. I apologize. I don't have my mic stand. I have it on the desk, so I can't do anything about that. Anyway, I gotta go. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Pre-recorded stuff. Yay! And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Pablo Sigma Cat, Sermonator, Georgie Badev, Deathstrider X, Arentine, Hammertoad45, Connor the Gamer, Poland Country Ball, Nevada Garbage Trucks, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.